without a microphone. Jesus said, "Tell everyone to sit down." No doubt he said it loud enough so that all could sit down. This was a place with a lot of grass, and about 5,000 men sat down there. Jesus took the loaves of bread and gave thanks for them. Remember at the Last Supper, the picture we have at the back of this sanctuary? Jesus held up the loaf and said, "This is the new covenant." This loaf represents the new covenant. You and I live in the new covenant. He took the loaves of bread and he gave thanks for them. And he gave them to the people who were waiting to eat. It sounds like somewhere there who had an appetite for a Snickers. He did the same with the fish. So he holds up the bread, and then he holds up the fish, maybe at the same time, and he thanks God for them. I wonder if the baskets at that point started more of a creation of bread and more of a creation of fish at that very moment. Again, we see in Colossians, Jesus is being given credit for creating everything visible and invisible from nothing. The firstborn of all creation. So all of this starts manifesting itself, no doubt, in the baskets he's holding up, and he hands them out, and maybe there's a lot of busyness, maybe there's a lot of passing around, but all of a sudden, the food is going everywhere. And I believe the disciples, like you and me, were watching this, but also they were having to pass the bread along. So they did get busy in the whole process. Notice it continues to say, he gave them to the people who were waiting. He did the same with the fish. And then notice this. He gave them, meaning all the people gathered, as much as they wanted, probably could define that word also as needed. But I think that is a very important New Testament principle. God will give you enough. Remember that. Verse 12, they all had plenty to eat. When they were finished, Jesus said, "Gather the pieces of fish and bread that were not. Don't waste anything." Don't waste anything. So now let's go and jump right in to the outline again. Jesus continues doing discipling to get those near him to change, just as he wants you and I to change. He now enters galaxies, I'd like to say, galaxies of miracle success. A beautiful batch of words. Galaxies of miracle success. We need to focus on Jesus that way. We need to pray that if you know somebody you're really, really concerned about, make sure that one of the things you're doing for that person is praying for miracles to happen in their life. And you look at Jesus and he was walking around and all the different miracles he did. He did lots of different kinds of miracles. This is one of them. And you can say that, Lord, open my eyes so that I can see these miracles, and then I can feel the spirituality of what you're involved in my life and in the loved ones nearby. And then I can be a part of that galaxy that Jesus is in every single day. And he says to the families, verse 10, make all recline so the families can kind of hang out and be together, and then he is heard. See, the green grass set the stage for the expanding of the foods in the baskets. You know, we must really be careful that when we watch ministers who are on television. That we don't come with a condemning view, or a judgmental view, or an accusing view, but we realize that a lot of people need to be gathered at some of these mass events where healings take place. It was fascinating to as a younger man in seminary, to listen to an old LP record of Oral Roberts. And it was from the mid to late 50s. And he would literally go to fairgrounds and places like that. And on these dirt floor stadiums and speedways and whatnot, he would gather 10 or 20,000 people. And he would always close and ask for all of these miracles of healing to happen. And this is what Jesus was doing. He was saying, this is part of the way you're going to all work as you follow me. Indeed, as things were getting set up, disciples probably had various thoughts. But I think one of the things that hopefully all of them did was they watched Jesus very carefully when he held up that loaf of bread. And he said, Lord, I thank you for this bread. What did he also say later about the bread? He said, I am the bread of life. He also said to others who were following him, the food that I eat, you may not know anything about. And so when you look at Jesus, you need to look at him and say, what are you, Lord Jesus, to me as an energy source? And he does need to be just that. Lord Jesus, you said the Father was leading and guiding you, and that you had food no one else. Let me have that same energy source on a daily basis. And I feel that, and I know you feel that, and our job is to help other people feel that energy source, which comes from faith, which comes from pleasing God, which comes from being set apart to do the Lord's work, which is another definition of holiness. Holiness. Okay? So the stage was set, E, for the future breaking of the bread in Jesus' hands. And F, God made the universe from nothing, so miraculous food is made to distribute. In our Sunday school class, someone said, and it was a good thing to be said, but the skeptics say that maybe there was food that other people had in their picnic baskets. And I would say this. What this passage is showing is that there was a continuation, generally speaking, of the people who saw Jesus do the miracles with people who were sick and needed healing, and they just wanted to keep following him. And it was a building up. Why were they there? They were there because they wanted to be around this guy, Jesus, who was doing great, great, great things, and they just wanted to share in it. Whatever he was doing, it was happening in a big way. That's the way we should view Jesus, too. He's doing big things in our life. He will continue to do big things in our life, and we want to follow him and be near him and feel that energy source. That source that is a part of what keeps all of the galaxies together, that keeps our universe together, and it will continue to be together until the day arrives to create a new one. Okay, G, to disciples, Jesus miraculously hands bread upon bread, fish upon fish to them. At some point, and in some way, the disciples had to just pinch themselves and say, my goodness, look at what is happening here. And then I think, in that same vein, if we were right there in the middle, on the grass, on one of the hillsides, and someone we knew and cared about was sitting right next to him, we would say, isn't this amazing? Can you believe what is happening here right now? The fish are everywhere, the loaves are everywhere, we have enough to eat, and no doubt, it isn't even mentioned when they had enough water to drink as well. That was provided, I also believe, miraculously at this time. And so, his disciples see his hands on the miracle. And that's why one of the great ways to pray is to simply say, Lord Jesus, put your hand on this situation. Put your touch on this person. And you pray in that same way for Jesus to enter in and do great, great things, which he did here. And we'll see it even more so as we study some of the other passages next week. Notice the biblical promise there at the end of verse 11, as much as they wanted, fulfilled before their eyes. I remember one time being at a leadership meeting, and someone spoke up and they said, you know, my spouse and I were talking the other day, and they said, how does God do it? I didn't think we had enough money to pay all the bills. And look, they're all paid, and we even have some money left over. And I like the fact that in the midst of that statement, that person was saying, I don't need to know what my right hand is doing. I don't need to know what my left hand is doing. I simply need to have faith that God will take care of me, that God is going to work things out, and that my job is to believe in him. And so Jesus is helping everybody realize as they got enough that it was because of him and the way he was working and who he really was. And things were fulfilled before their eyes. And I hope you have a good bit of that in your own life. That you feel a sense of fulfillment for what you're doing, what you're putting your hands to, what you're getting back. Because your hand is in the hand of Jesus, because you're listening to him, because you're asking questions to him, he's asking questions to you, and it's all ending up helping you in a fulfilled way. In our transition then, the gathering of remains. And I like that one sentence at the end. Verse 12, they all had plenty to eat. When they finished, Jesus said to his followers,